my wife and I took our experience as being high-level executive assistants and distilled that down into e-learning modules that we sold to basically new college grads. And our pitch to them was, look, if you have you're coming out of college, let's say with a history degree, but you have a real interest in fashion. Well, use our system and our training to get really good at being an assistant in a really short period of time, get a job at a fashion agency, prove yourself from within, and get promoted from within.
Welcome to Future Driven. I'm Adam Kopp, and on this podcast, I talk with entrepreneurs and industry professionals about the challenges and the wins in their business. See the vision, drive the future. So welcome to episode 26 of the Future Driven podcast. I'm excited to have on Ethan Bull from proassisting.com. And I originally connected with Ethan looking for a virtual assistant and thought he'd be a perfect guest. So Ethan, thanks for taking the time.
Thanks a lot for having me, Adam.
Yeah. So Ethan, I've been looking at your company, very interested. We're just not quite there yet, but really like your business model and the service that you're offering. Could you give us a quick overview before we kind of dive into your career and how you got here?
Sure. We call ourselves remote executive assistants versus virtual assistants. And that may seem like a little bit of linguistics, but we actually saw a gap between what we've done as my wife and I, what we've done for 25 plus years as high-level executive assistants, and how that converted to being a virtual assistant compared to how it converts to being an actual in-office full-time assistant. And so pro assisting for us and being a remote executive assistant sits kind of between the two. If you just need some tasks and projects done and you don't need very quick turnaround time and you don't need someone in all of your worlds, both personal and business, and providing a full service support feel, then a virtual assistant may be right. And if you're not ready to hire a full-time in-house person, or you just don't need that level of support, we could be a great option.
And I like what you said right before we started. Because of COVID, you no longer have to explain remote work. So give us a little bit of what you mean by that.
Well, before COVID, and I would have people come to us and say, "Hey, how does this work, and what happens, and whatnot?" I would have to go into a deep discussion about remote work. And since RIM and with the BlackBerry and then the iPhone came along, to be honest, executive assistants has been doing remote work since about the mid 2000s. And so, whether we're out with friends and standing outside on the sidewalk, outside a restaurant, rejiggering a flight for a principal or client or boss of ours, we've gotten really good at remote work. But a lot of people don't understand that in terms of, having an email on your system that has delegated access to your contacts and your calendar and has a real view into what you do and looks as if you are sitting in the office next door. Now, post-COVID, I don't have to have that conversation anymore because everybody has already done it. We were thrown into the fire, if you will, and everybody had to, catch up and work like that. And so now what we're finding is that people are really understanding the value and understanding that it can work really well.
That's awesome. So it's natural we're going to keep going down this path because I want to learn more about today's world. But give us a quick overview of your career and how, what was your career leading up to launching Pro Assisting, and you just want to kind of hear your background a little bit.
Sure. I grew up in a small town outside of Rochester, New York, called Canandaigua, New York. And it was a little too claustrophobic for me, being a town of about 15,000 people. So I went to Boston for college at Bentley University, specialty business school. And when I got out, I actually, through my internship, found a production assistant job working on the Warner Brothers movie Addicted to Love in New York City. So that brought me to New York City, and I worked in the film entertainment world for about 5 years, both on independent productions as a Dolly key grip and Best Boy grip, and also on studio pictures as a production assistant, a production assistant, production coordinator, and a production coordinator. And those roles are kind of assistant positions. And in Hollywood or the entertainment industry, the assistant role is really where 80% of the people get their start, to get their foot in the door and move on up. After about 5 years, I shifted into advertising, stayed in New York, and assisted the chief operating officer as well as the chief strategy officer for Deutsch. Deutsch, the ad agency, not Deutsche, the bank. Yeah. And they're a pretty well-known Madison Ave agency. And I was with them for 13 years. And through that time period, my boss, the chief operating officer, she just didn't want to deal with the assistant population. So she promoted me to director of administrative services, where I oversaw a team of about 12 assistants, and we supported about 60 executives. And then my wife, who did the same kind of work, but for two different hedge fund CEOs, as well as the CEO of J. Crew, the clothing line. After my wife had her second baby, we decided to move back to my hometown. And we realized quickly that in a town like Rochester, New York, 600,000 people, about, the term executive assistant means something completely different than it does in New York or LA or Seattle. And there were about 5 seats in Rochester, New York that are commensurate with our experience. While my wife stayed home with the kids, I was fortunate enough to get a job in one of those 5 seats, assisting the CEO of Rochester Regional Health, which is a $2 billion a year healthcare network with 16,000 employees, 5 hospitals, long-term care facilities, and behavioral health facilities. In addition to being the CEO's executive assistant, I was also director of administrative services there, where I oversaw a team of about 80 assistants, and we supported about 250 executives throughout the network. And it was really about trying to level up what it meant to be an assistant, really focus in on the 3-to-1 executive to assistant ratio, to kind of smooth out the amount of work per each assistant, and just level up and raise up the service and hospitality that our assistants provided. And then that led into pro assisting.
So what year was it that you moved back to Rochester, just to kind of give us a little framework of time?
July of 2015.
Okay. So 5-6 years ago, you moved back to New York, and so you worked at that healthcare, right?
Yep.
You just said?
Yep.
And so your career through, Deutsch, Madison Avenue, your wife's career, you've gotten you've been in high level executive assistant position, which, you essentially have bundled that all up. So what year did you launch Pro Assisting, and did you go full time on that?
Well, it's interesting. We actually launched Pro Assisting in 2009 as an educational company. My wife and I took our experience as being high level executive assistants and distilled that down into e-learning modules that we sold to basically new college grads. And our pitch to them was, look, if you have you're coming out of college, let's say with a history degree, but you have a real interest in fashion. Well, use our system and our training to get really good at being an assistant in a really short period of time, get a job at a fashion agency, prove yourself from within, and get promoted from within. We ran that from 2009 to 2017. And then in 2018, I left Rochester Regional Health. My wife had gotten one client through our network, just to do some freelance work as an assistant for a consultant. Okay. And that really keyed our eye into or turned our gaze to what's out there for us. We're in an area, a location that really doesn't have a lot of opportunity for someone with our experience. And so at the beginning of 2018, middle of 2018, that's when we pivoted Pro Assisting, redid our website, And after taking a really good deep dive into what the virtual assistant landscape looked like, we decided to go a little bit different direction and with the term remote executive assistant, and then a little bit of a unique business model for what we provide.
Yeah, and I think you're right. There's a huge difference from what I know of a VA virtual assistant and your remote executive assistant, which is with the terminology you're coining. So could you dive
Correct.
in a little bit to, and we don't need to get into specifics, but there's a ton of VA companies out there with a bunch of
Correct.
different models, from overseas support to
Yep.
domestic, but to generalize, what is the difference between a VA and a remote executive assistant?
From our point of view, what we did is we talked to a lot of people who had virtual assistants before we launched Pro Assisting in its current form. And what they were telling us was that if you have a task list and some smaller projects, a virtual assistant can be a great fit. You fill them up with tasks and they go off and do them and then come back to you. And what we saw, though, was that some of the concerns were turnaround time. Was that, one day you could get a turnaround time of 2 hours from your virtual assistant, and another time it may take 24 hours or 36 hours for them to get back to you. And the reason for that is sometimes virtual assistants have to have 8, 10, 15 clients, maybe even more per month to make enough money so that they can live. And a lot of what we saw going through some interview processes with some of these virtual assistant companies is they wanted people with our experience, 5+ years, C-suite experience, USA based, and they're charging $40 to $45 an hour for our service, but then they're only paying the assistant $18 to $20 an hour as an independent contractor. And we just didn't feel that measured up with our experience. Now, the way that we look at being a remote virtual assistant is the same thing as being a high-level assistant in the office. We really look at the role as being a business partner, bless you, a chief of staff, an assistant / scheduler, and a personal assistant all rolled into one. And we took our idea in terms of what worked in the real world, not in the real world, but in the office environment, of that 3-to-1 executive to assistant ratio. That's really the sweet spot. And it's proved out to us over years that a great executive assistant can handle up to 3 executives and really provide full service support. And so what we did was we came up with the 3-to-1 executive to assistant ratio in our model, and we charge a flat retainer of $3,000 a month. And that provides you 1/3 of the resources of one of our assistants who is in and out of your business multiple times a day, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. So it really provides our clients with a feeling of having that true right-hand support and someone who really gets to know them really well, someone whose turnaround time is less than an hour and usually less than half an hour. And they have access to our assistants on phone, text, Zoom, email, all of the above. And that person is really integrated into their business. So it looks as if from the outside that they're truly part of the team and they're not their own independent contractor working for 2 other clients.
Okay. And then, so you're managing and finding assistants, executive assistants, training them up into your standard, and then matching them up with clients based on, requests or needs. And we've already gone through this process, discovery call, if you will, to understand and know a little bit more about my business so that you can talent ID the right person in my time zone, et cetera.
Correct. Yep. Yeah.
So essentially your company is really a talent acquisition and you've identified really good people on the executive assistant side and then match them with the right type of CEO or business owner, because there's different needs. Each each person or each company is going to need different things, and you have to kind of match that to the skill sets that you have.
Yes and no. I actually look at a top level executive assistant as being a chameleon, and industry agnostic. If you throw a great executive assistant into a partnership with a CEO of a company, whether you're talking about being a medical manufacturing company, a hedge fund, or an ad agency, they're really going to be molding themselves into that role automatically. And that's one of the things we look for on the resume of the assistants that we engage with. They have to really have the experience on paper first, and then it's all about, beyond that, their interpersonal skills, their servant's heart, understanding what the role is, understanding that they're a hired gun, and really feeling out their level of hospitality, and really trying to elevate the role there. And when I say that a remote executive assistant is a business partner, chief of staff, project manager, assistant, scheduler, and personal assistant, not all of our clients use their assistant in each of those facets, but that option is totally there for them. And so, it's really, we are a an expert two-sided marketplace, as you pointed out, absolutely. But we've put really distinct guidelines on the amount of resources that each of our assistant is giving to a client, what that work looks like. But as a whole, we're partnering with great executive assistants who could command six figures in major metropolitan areas. And those assistants we're compensating commensurate with their experience because we're a really lean organization. We have no overhead in terms of a big staff or anything. My wife and I are co-founders, and we've done that specifically so we can avoid, compensating our assistants $20 or $30 an hour. The minimum that our assistants make is $50 an hour, and it flexes up because they're being paid a flat retainer too. So it's a little nuanced in that regard.
Okay. So 1/3 of an EA is roughly 15 to 20 hours a week type of thing, depending on the week, depending on the task list.
It's that's in the ballpark.
Yep.
But the thing is that, our assistants on one day, they may work for a client for 4.5 hours, but then on another day, they may work for 23 minutes.
Yep.
And so we look at it as on a monthly basis, in terms of time, but that's only one part that you're getting. You're also getting exclusivity, meaning you're only sharing this assistant with 2 other people. And, they don't have 8, 10, 15 clients. You're also getting their efficiency over time. They're going to get to know you better and better as time goes on. They're going to be able to take more off your plate, answer questions before they get to your plate. And that comes through even after just 3 or 4 weeks, we notice a big lift. And then at the 6-month mark, it's much bigger than that as well. And then you're also getting their experience. That old question, that old thing of the man or the wife is at home and they get the loud banging in the basement and a pipe is just banging, banging, banging. They call the plumber. The plumber comes over and listens for the bang and hears it, takes out his hammer, hits 2 times in one spot and says, okay, here's my bill, $250. Well, they're like, wait, you were only here for 5 minutes. And he's like, you're not paying me for the 5 minutes that I'm here. You're paying me for the 30 years to know where to hit the pipe to make it stop. And so you're getting that as well. And that's, that fits for our clients. But a lot of times I'm talking to a prospect and it's just not the right fit. They want to know down to the minute how much time their assistant is spending on their stuff. And that's not how we do it, because we really want consistent compensation for our assistants month in and month out. So they're not worried about how many hours am I going to get next month? How much, what is my comp going to be? I can, without having to worry about that, and they can really focus on the work. And that's where we really want to go as a company. We want to be known as a platform for high-level executive assistants who meet our criteria to tap into So they don't have to worry about marketing, sales, invoicing, contracts, human resource aspects, any of that. They just get to plug into our system, do the work, and get compensated commensurate with their experience.
Yeah, I would say the additional thing that your EAs provide is your experience and the framework that you've created and your decades of experience that you can then deploy that quickly to them with your training and so forth. So combined with their personal experience, I think you and your wife, makes it a really strong candidate to bring a lot of value to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. And in addition to that, currently both my wife and I are still working directly with a full load of clients. So I have walked the walk in this business model for it's going to be approaching 3 years. And so is my wife. And what that has given us is a real comfort that we're getting it right, because we have clients that have been with us for over 3 years. And, in business, they talk, well, what's your lifetime value of a client and how does that look? We still don't know, because our clients are sticking with us and it's happening month after month after month. Because one of the biggest pain points for any executive when they're working with an assistant is fear that the assistant's going to leave them, and then they have to onboard, they have to source and then onboard someone new. Yep. And executives know that time cost is real. And so, once they get someone who's great and who really meshes with them and they get in a great rhythm, they don't want to let them go. And that's something interesting, is that we're offering that because we are kind of hired guns. We're not looking to come in and get promoted from within or, move to a different department after a year or 2 years. We're looking to create a long-term relationship with our clients so we can provide great value. They can feel the value, and we can be really happy with the work product that we're doing, and then live a great life. Where's that work-life balance, and work that in as well. And the idea of doing what we do remotely really is appealing to a lot of assistants in that way.
Yeah. And I mean, something you just touched on, but just searching for new hires, EA or others is a process, and it's a timely thing, which costs money. So you've eliminated all of that. And it's a matter of, getting signed up with Pro Assisting, and then you having the right person at the right time to join in. So
absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about it sounds like you've been on the forefront of this whole EA thing for the last 10 plus years with e-learning systems back in 2009. Now, remote COVID kind of pushing that whole concept forward. The whole world is outsourcing things that are not necessary anyways, just because of speed and time. What do you see the future for executive assistants, or are there other roles that could be to follow the same model? Do you got any predictions or vision for the future for your company and the role that you're in?
We have a lot of ideas of what pro assisting could look like, maybe with the right partner down the road. In terms of, it's the whole thing, like Casper is not a bed company, it's a sleep company. Yeah. And if you think about pro assisting, we are a remote executive assistant company now, but there is a path to become a support company. And that takes many different forms. In terms of the industry in general, I think, whether you're talking about Uber, or you're talking about a bookkeeping service, or you're talking about a graphic designer or copywriter, there are a lot of roles out there that lend themselves to being a gig role or a remote role. And the thing specifically about assistants is that when you have an assistant who has 10 plus years of experience, what the executive or the client or the principal doesn't see is the efficiency that we have in terms of moving really fast in on any number of things for a specific client, to where in the head the client may be thinking, oh, this could take them 3.5, 4 hours, but it ends up taking 2.5. Or leveraging their experience from an out of the box kind of thinking in terms of different ideas when you run into an issue or problem. But in terms of, I think that government should really acknowledge this new space that we're in. I think that, just because you are the whole line between, if you're a gig worker, are you a full-time employee? Are you an independent contractor? Or are you an LLC or a subchapter S corporation? How does that work? My concern is about compensation and just making sure people are compensated appropriately. And if that hurdle is being met, I think that government should let people do what they want to do. So there's all of those issues, I think, are coming to a head, as we saw in California with the Uber lawsuit about trying to designate their drivers as employees. And so it's a big thorny issue on that side of things. But I think the world is moving quicker, it always does, than Washington. And I think that, this gives, where we're moving with technology, gives people a lot of opportunity to leverage their experience in new ways that can give them a better quality of life and a diverse range of experiences for a number of different people, as opposed to locking into one company. And then the burden on that company to hire someone full time and make sure they have that cash flow coming in, so where they can make payroll, that's a huge lift too. Give those companies and those entrepreneurs the opportunity to key in as well. We're really at an inflection point. And if I had a crystal ball, I probably wouldn't be sitting here right now.
Well, Ethan, I've been very impressed with you personally since we've interacted, and the concept of your company aligns with the way that I would like to outsource certain things. So I'm really happy for you. I see I've recommended to a few people, and for those that are listening out there, proassisting.com is a very interesting company, and I look forward to you bringing more remote executive assistants to executives across the world and to streamline the process. So thank you.
Oh, Adam, that's really kind of you. I really appreciate it. It's been great getting to know you too. And when you're ready, we are here.
Awesome. I'll be ready eventually.
I know.
So Ethan, thanks. And that's the funny thing. I think because you must have multiple guys like me or gals out there that are interested. You have conversations. Now it's just more about their learning. And then it's like, okay, and then you just got to be there when they're ready, right? And educate and
yep.
It's all part of the process.
It's all part of the process. And we're not looking to, we're not a hard sell company. We're looking for long-term relationships in the right way. 2021 has been, we kind of feel like we've got the tiger by the tail a little bit in terms of how many clients we've brought on. It's been mind blowing. But in 2020, we lost a third of our clients because people were going out of business, unfortunately, or they just didn't need the support. So when people say to me, oh, this COVID must have been awesome for your business, in the short term, it was not, definitely for about a year. But in the long term, I think this whole shift in the mindset around remote work is going to benefit everybody.
Oh, that's great. Well, congrats on that, and looking forward to seeing your growth. So thanks so much, Ethan, for taking the time today.
Thanks a lot, Adam.